Hey Moonies, welcome to the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. I'm your host, Victoria L. Johnson, and I'm here with Power and Magic Press founder, editor, publisher, and creator, Joamette Gil. Hi, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. I'm super excited to talk to you. You obviously do hold many hats, and you have an amazing company.
Thank you.
Yeah. So first question I ask everyone, so what's your first memory of watching Sailor Moon?
My first memory of watching Sailor Moon is me at probably 5 or 6 years old, sitting in my grandmother's living room and just watching it on the big ol' cube-shaped television.
Mm-hmm.
I also have early memories of trying to convince my grandmother to watch it with me by telling her that it's just like her soap operas. It has all the same drama and all the same romance,
yeah,
and the disguises and like the just tomfoolery.
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't buying it.
I
think primarily because it was a cartoon, but also
right.
She didn't speak English, so I don't know how much she would have gotten out of it anyway.
Yeah, that'd be difficult. Yeah, I had another guest actually on here. She grew up in the Dominican Republic. She said that when she saw it, she felt like it was kind of like a telenova, but that was geared towards her, at her younger age.
Yeah, it's the first cartoon I remember watching that had the same level of like character depth and histories and like relationship charts. Everyone had like you had a big ensemble cast and everyone has their own little sub dynamic, and so much of it was about how the different characters feel about each other in different circumstances and how they support each other, how they clash with each other. And it was also one of the first cartoons I remember watching that had like an actual plot.
Right,
just
yeah.
like a little capsule episode for 30 minutes each time.
Yeah, it was like a continuing plot. I was thinking that earlier too. It's so funny how you bring this up because I've been thinking, I think Sailor Moon might have been the first show where I wouldn't say I felt empathy for a character, but like kind of like made me realize like, oh, I can have emotions that like relate to a TV show. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like pretty much my relationship to every other cartoon character that I enjoyed at the time was one of, oh, that one's cool. Or
right,
that
or
one's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
That's about it.
Or it's interesting. Or like, oh, they look like they're having fun, but it was never like, oh, I feel sad for her. Oh, I'm like heartbroken because she's heartbroken or he's heartbroken or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely hits the nail on the head. Did you have a favorite scout or character?
Yeah, I feel like the character or the Sailor Scout that's probably the most like me while I was watching it growing up is Sailor Mercury. But the one that meant the most to me was Sailor Moon. And that's because I had like really, really bad self-esteem growing up. And it always sounds backhanded when I say this about Usagi, but I mean it in the best way possible. But
right.
The message that really, really touched me in Sailor Moon was the idea that like even someone as useless and unreliable and like bad at school and like all this stuff as Usagi was a person who mattered and could make a difference in the world and who could share love and compassion for others. And because like I didn't have very good self-esteem, it was sort of an example of like, oh, is this cartoon telling me that like people have inherent value beyond like productivity or scholastic achievement?
Right.
And more like numerical, like quantitative things that like people apply pressure on to like kids for making good grades and doing their homework and like not messing up and stuff like that. Especially as like a child of immigrants, I had like a huge amount of pressure put on me. It was kind of like this whole it was the whole story of you need to be the very best at school or you're not going to get anywhere, combined with we're not even from this country, we don't own anything, we don't have anything, so you're going to save the family by like going to college when like no one else did. And like I thought, gosh, I don't know if I can do this stuff, I don't know if I can carry this weight, but Usagi was there every day on Toonami, like saving the whole goddamn world, and she couldn't even like focus at a chalkboard long enough before like wanting a donut. So if like Usagi could do it, I could do it.
Yeah. I think that captures it completely. Totally not backhanded. Yeah, I think, yeah. And I'm guessing like with Sailor Mercury, like were you like more studious when you're younger and like more school focused?
Yeah, definitely very studious and school focused, and like not the best at making friends. I usually had my nose buried in a book, and I was like I was bullied as a kid, and some of the bullying was literally like, look at her, she's reading, which is like so 90s and weird to say now. Yeah. But yeah, so like so I also really liked the dynamic between Usagi and Ami when they met, where this girl who's like sort of ostracized because not only is she sort of nose to the grindstone, like trying to focus on achievement, but also like people are intimidated by her and they're like, oh, you know, she's that smart girl, we can't talk to her, we can't be friends with her, she doesn't want to be friends with us. And it just felt really good to see that like in the form of Usagi just like taking an interest in her and genuinely liking her even without realizing she was one of the Sailor Scouts. It's like this idea of like, yeah, you know, someone like Sailor Mercury also needs friends. It doesn't matter how like focused she is or how smart she is. You can't do without like people who just want to have fun with you and just want to be around you for you.
Yeah. And I think she also like she never was like, oh, you need to stop reading. She was just like, oh, you read, cool, but like let's also like go to the arcade. Yeah. So I think that's also great. Just like and you make a good point too, because I never realized like Usagi does befriend I think all the scouts, most of them, before she knows they're scouts. And that's a really cool thing too. Like she kind of does the same thing with Jupiter, where she's like, oh, like people seem intimidated by you, but you seem cool and you have good food, so what's up? Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think Ray maybe not so much. I think they had like a more of a bad first encounter, but you know, still good vibes. Yeah,
they're definitely like, oh, we're rivals before I realized that I like have to work with you now, you know,
right?
And that's part of what's so great about the show, because it's not even like, oh, we're all best friends and the end. Like it's we're best friends, and being a good friend is hard work, and it like kind of shows you all the like conflicts that could come up between girls that still support and care about each other.
Yeah, that's so true. Someone put it on Twitter the other day too, where like you know, obviously Sailor Mars, Ray and Usagi are rivals, but in one scene when they're kind of like banding together to fight somebody, it's Usagi grabs Ray's hand first before all the other Sailor Scouts join in. It's just really cool. Just think like we're still teammates, we're still friends, even though we don't always get along. Like I still have your back and you have mine.
Just you mentioning that like made my eyes like wet.
Yeah. It's so Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
But yay. If your eyes are wet, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about your work too, though, because you're also doing amazing things with Power and Magic Press. How did well, first for people who don't know, what is it, and how did you what made you want to start it, and how did it come about?
So Power and Magic Press is my publishing imprint. I am the publisher, editor, salesperson, everything. It's just me. And every year I choose a theme for a comics anthology. I put out submissions, and I select people for said anthologies, and then I kickstart them. My anthology themes in the past have been queer witches of color, non-binary forest, like folklore fantasy stories, and as of this recording, funding on Kickstarter is our Latinx sci-fi anthology. And honestly, I started the press in 2016 just with like nothing except the knowledge that Kickstarter exists and a vague idea of how to use it. And everything else just like sprouted from there. I was sort of getting tired and frustrated by projects I'd been a part of or like wanted to be a part of that weren't paying very much. And unfortunately, that's a big problem in the comics industry for various reasons. You know, sometimes it's institutional, sometimes personal, sometimes like they can be fixed, sometimes they can't. There's not a lot of money in comics. Yeah. And I just sort of like decided, okay, well, I'm dissatisfied enough with how much I'm getting paid to do this incredibly hard work, because making comics is very, very hard, that I felt motivated to create the sort of projects that I know I would want to apply for and pay the amount that would maybe not be like the ultimate in what the best page rate for a cartoonist would be, because again, I was starting with no resources, but that was still like higher by like an order of magnitude than what similar projects were paying. Like I decided, okay, I'm going to figure out what the standard is for anthologies and I'm going to pay double. We're going to start there. So it was basically born just out of like wanting to be the change in the world. It's like, okay, well, what project would I be really stoked about? And like, how much would I prefer to be paid instead of this? So each anthology is geared around a different genre and also geared around giving a specific community of marginalized creators the spotlight. Like with Queer Witches of Color, only creators of color on the spectrum of womanhood are allowed to even apply. So that it's not like a competition of so it's not like one of those things where like, oh, you know, we love diversity, we encourage applications from creators of color. It's like, right. No, creators of color are the only option. Like, we're just gonna say that right now. Right. So that it can be our thing. Same with the non-binary anthology. So yeah, we've been doing this since 2016. Mañana, the Latinx sci-fi anthology, is our 5th book. And we also recently signed with White Squirrel, which is a indie/small press warehousing and fulfillment center based in around Seattle, Washington. So we've also like recently graduated from my personal living room is full of thousands and thousands of books that I take to the post office by myself to, oh, our printer in China sends our big pallets directly to the warehouse. Like, it's getting highfalutin around here. Yeah.
Doing big things.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited about it, and also very grateful to White Squirrel for existing, because like that sort of option isn't easily accessible normally for small presses, but because they're like specifically geared to working with small presses, it creates like, it like opens up this whole new avenue for so many people.
Yeah, because I can imagine like most people, they only want to print stuff if it's going to be in large volumes. Like they probably have minimums.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it really does help. You know, I'm assuming just, you know, for comics, but also it helps me like when I find other places where like, you know, you want business cards or you want stickers, and I'm like, I can't order 500, but I can order 50. Like, so yeah, that is awesome. And yeah, shout out to them. That's amazing. I'm really excited. Yeah, I didn't realize also that you only you know, accept submissions from like either queer people or non-binary people or people of color. Like that really just cuts so much out, you know, the annoying things that can happen.
I like to joke that Mañana Anthology introduces a new layer of diversity at Power and Magic Press because it is our first anthology that has cis men in it.
Oh, I love that. It's like I want to live in the world where adding cis men is the diversity.
If only.
Right. Yes. Oh, yeah, that'd be a great world. Like, oh yeah, we have one white guy who's cisgendered and straight. And you also you're a letterer.
Yes.
Yes,
I
thought that was cool. Yeah. It's such an art. I feel like so many people don't appreciate it.
Definitely not. It's yeah, and I think part of that is that a lot of people don't understand how to actually do it, or like what goes into it. And I think that's an issue with like, I guess, the arts overall. Like if you're not like in that, if you're not in the arts or you're not in that specific like subsection of the arts, you just kind of look at the finished piece and say, oh wow, cool, with like no appreciation or true understanding of like how many hours that took, like how much someone's back hurts from sitting at the computer that long. Like there's no frame of reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I letter comics. I've lettered for Lion Forge, Oni Press, Dark Horse, and a lot of like independent folks as well. It's actually my favorite part of the comics process. Like I publish, I edit, I draw, I write, but if someone told me you're only allowed to letter for the rest of your life, I'd be like, you know what? That tough but fair.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll that's fine.
Yeah. I feel like it's like lighting in movies. Like you don't realize it's bad until you see something or like, oh, the lighting in this is bad. Like, you know, like, oh, the lettering in this is like, I've seen some stuff and I'm like, oh, like this lettering is off, and I'm like, I don't realize it's something that I appreciate until I see it not as good.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Just like like CG in like a live action film always looks the best when you have no idea you're even looking at it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like you don't want to be seen. You don't want people to know you're there. Unless they look at, you know, yeah.
And sometimes I worry about coming off as like too much, like as an editor, whenever when folks comics get to like the lettering phase, and I've given them their script notes, I've given them their art notes and all that, then we get to lettering and I'm like, I have so many more notes about these letters than about like literally any other phase that we just went through, and it's like this long. It's like I'm sorry y'all, this is the phase where I like literally see everything.
Yeah. No, I get it. I feel like everyone has one thing and that's your thing, and that's awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. And obviously you love Sailor Moon. Was there any other anime that you are a fan of?
Oh yeah, tons and tons. The one that's sort of on the same level in terms of the impact it's had on my life is Cardcaptor Sakura.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you liked the new version?
Yeah. Yeah, I've liked it. There are things about it that, or there are things that I preferred in the original, but I think that's only natural. I was a child when I saw the original.
Yeah.
And I hope my sensibilities have changed a little bit. But yeah, like, I feel like Sailor Moon was the show that sort of introduced me to the idea that storytelling in cartoon form could, like, what it could be. And then Cardcaptor Sakura sort of, that was the one where I felt most, like, immersed in the world. And I think it was because it was lower key. I think it was because it focused on one girl's experience as opposed to an ensemble. And it was so much more, like, fine-tuned as a coming-of-age story. With Sailor Moon, it sort of was like the girls are sort of evolving and like relating with each other and coming of age while the plot was happening. And then with Cardcaptor Sakura, it's like the plot shows up every now and then while Sakura like comes of age.
It's like, oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I actually never asked this. What's your first memory of watching Cardcaptor Sakura?
I think the first time I watched Cardcaptor Sakura was actually I caught like the last 10 minutes of an episode on the WB when I was like 10, and I thought, this looks real dumb.
No, yeah, I get that, yeah.
Then I sat down and watched the entire, like, well, the dubs version of the first episode, because that dub is wildly bad. But the dubs version of the first episode came on one day on Toonami, I think when I was 11 or 12. And it was after the end of like the Dark Moon arc or something.
Oh, and Sailor Moon.
Of Sailor Moon, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool, season finale. I'm gonna come back home from school tomorrow and see the new season of Sailor Moon. But the next thing to come up in Sailor Moon was gonna be Sailor Stars, and that never got brought over. Right. So the next day, Toonami made the switch over to airing Cardcaptor Sakura for the first time on their network. And I was like, well, I'm always in front of the TV at this half hour anyway, so I guess I'll watch this instead. And the dub pilot like hooked me completely. So then that became my new show. And yeah, I just love it. Like, Sailor Moon made me want to do something with storytelling and art as a career. And then Cardcaptor Sakura sort of is probably the biggest, like, influence content and, like, ethos wise to, like, the stories I actually tell.
So, like, world building.
Yeah, like stuff that's very one or two people's inner worlds focused, with magical shit just kind of surrounding them. And like, I think one of the sort of most meaningful lines to me in fiction is from Cardcaptor Sakura. It's this recurring theme where Sakura will be feeling like she can't do this, or she's nervous, or she's not sure if she's strong enough or powerful enough, and her sort of magical guardian, Keroberos, will always remind her, well, don't forget, no matter what happens, if your resolve fails or your powers fail, remember your invincible spell. You have one spell that no one can beat, and the incantation for that spell is, everything will absolutely be okay.
Hmm. I like that. Yeah. Now I'm getting teary-eyed.
Yeah, I'm like all misty over here too. Like, and it just happens throughout the show. Like, Sakura will have to like center herself and calm herself during a bad situation. She just whispers to herself, "Everything will absolutely be okay," before she goes out and does what she has to do.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I was late to Cardcaptor Sakura. I also like watched it when I was younger, but for some reason, just never like grabbed me like other shows, especially Sailor Moon. And then later on, like a few years ago, I was like, you know what, let me go watch this show because clearly, you know, it's been an important show for so many people, especially for a lot of Sailor Moon fans. And I think I got through the first. I think I watched one of the movies, and then I watched like the first season of one. But I really need to finish it because I did enjoy it a lot. I just got distracted with life.
I mean, life's pretty interesting. So
it is pretty interesting, yeah. So many things going on in the world. And outside of anime, what do you stan, or what else do you stan?
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's a good question. I guess right out the gate, I'm not much of a fandom person. Like, like I don't write fanfic or draw fan art or anything like that. Like, I have in the past, but it's never been like I've never been like, oh, I'm part of that community. And like, I don't buy merch because I don't know, I'm like utilitarian. But I guess like properties that get me like heated, I think, like, yeah, even in a good way, like where I'm like excitedly heated and I like have so many emotions and no one's leaving this room until they hear them.
Right. You're all hostage now.
Yeah. One of those is Avatar: The Last Airbender, for sure.
Awesome. Yes. You know, as you were saying that, I was like, that's mine. Like I have opinions before anyone can leave the room.
I think that, as well as gosh, what was the other one I was gonna say? Oh, Naruto.
Oh,
I will talk someone's head off about Naruto and about the Game of Thrones show, even with like including the criticisms. But I can like go off about it forever.
I'm trying to pick. I'm like, I want to ask, what's your hottest take of one of them?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's a fair question.
I'm just trying to.
It's a fair and dangerous question.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a controversial or a unconventional one, but just like, what's your like? This is what I feel so much about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a little bit of a cop-out because I feel like everyone agrees with this one. But I feel like Naruto and Sasuke were like one of the best gay romances of all time. And the fact that they don't end up together is absolute robbery. It's robbery, it's tomfoolery, it's erasure. It's like I don't even care that Kishimoto didn't intend them to be. Like, he's wrong about his characters.
Yeah. I remember watching it, and like, even though obviously Naruto's like quote unquote in love with Sakura, I'm like, he clearly like he is like chasing after Sasuke. Like, he's not giving half as much energy to Sakura.
He's like in love with Sakura in the sense that like she's a girl and she's the one that's in front of him the most.
Right. It's like, oh, like default.
Yeah. That's like one of the biggest problems in Naruto, obviously. Like, the girls are all very like defaulty like characters. Every team from their ninja school is 2 guys and a girl, so literally every girl is a token within a subset of the characters.
Yeah, that is unfortunately true. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's a good take. I think I wasn't expecting that. I thought you were gonna say the that uh Zuko and Totara should have got together because that is also a thing for me. But
yeah,
that's
people,
another thing. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a thing for me too. And like,
Mm-hmm.
whenever people disagree, I'm like just so confused.
Me too. Like I watched the show. Actually, that was another one I was late to. So I watched it like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, all the way through. And like the whole time I'm like, oh, obviously this is where this is going. Like there was even like they were like, oh, you're gonna get with the strong bender, and I was like, oh, they're making you think it's gonna be Aang, but it's really gonna be Zuko. I'm like, I know, I see what's going on here, and I was so confused at the end. But yeah, but those are good.
Yeah, there are a lot of I feel like there are a lot of like accidentally engaging romances written by male writers who aren't trying to write one.
Yeah. Right.
And then when they are trying to write a romance, it's like, no, dummy, you just did it right over there. Like, do that if you must.
Yeah.
Just do that, but with the characters you're actually trying to pair.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I feel like a lot of straight men in general, in real life will like, I won't say value their friendships more, but like they like will like, oh yeah, we're going like they like, I don't know. It feels like they treat their friendships more differently than they would a relationship or like pursuing someone. Like, I don't know. I have to think about that more. There's something there. There's something there.
There's a seed.
Yes, there is a tweet thread in there somewhere. But you have Power Magic Press. What advice would you give to writers who want to start their own publishing company, or if they want to get chosen to be in your next anthology?
Okay, I'll start with the second one because that's easier.
Cool.
The best way to get into a Power Magic Press anthology is to follow us on Twitter so that you don't miss the call for submissions. That is step one, because every time I launch a Kickstarter, I hear from folks that are like, oh my god, it looks amazing, how do I submit? And I'm like, that part's over, baby.
Right.
See you next time.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely like, and not just with Power Magic Press, any publisher that you want to pitch to, like, follow them, like keep track of what they're up to and like what they're looking for and when they're looking for it. You gotta stay on top of it and stay abreast of the industry. For just writing or writers who would want to start their own press or their own imprint in general, I think my advice to them would be the exact same advice I give for like, what's your advice to artists? What's your advice to like whomever who's just trying to like even exist in the industry at all?
Yeah.
And that is, be kind. Be kind and be social. And to expand on that, every part of the industry is built upon relationships. Like, for example, when I put out a call for submissions for the very first Power Magic Press anthology, it's unlikely that as many people who saw it would have seen it if I had just shown up out of the blue. If like no one in comics knew who the heck I was.
Right.
And not in a like, oh, I was famous way, because I was and would argue am not famous. But I had a lot of friends and like a lot of colleagues and a lot of acquaintances and just a lot of people who I would talk to about comics and who I'd acknowledge and talk to about their stuff that they're working on and who I would share my works in progress with. Like just being part of the community and like being a known entity to like people who are in the same struggle as you makes it way more likely that when you come out and you say, well, okay, y'all, I'm doing something big, can y'all spread the word, that people know who you are, they'll remember, oh yeah, this person who gave me a good critique, or this person who is always liking all my art posts, this person who gave like a really good resource link to the group the other day. Like, they're more likely to see that from you and say, I'm going to retweet, I'm going to email my friends, I'm going to post it here, I'm going to do this and this and that. And like, in a nutshell, like, most people call that networking. But I think when people hear networking, they sort of sometimes get it into their heads that they're like, okay, got it. I got to fill a Rolodex. I got to call in favors. I got to do this. I need contacts, and like think about it in a very clinical way. Whereas, yes, it is who you know more than what you know, but you got to be a good person about it. So yeah, you want to be a genuine part of your creative community, not simply so that you know the right people, quote unquote, but also because literally everyone out there is also like benefiting from knowing you. Even if you think, oh, I'm nobody, I'm no one's contact, I'm no one's in. Nobody's, well, you'd hope. Most people's careers don't stay in the same spot forever.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You never know who's can help you further down the line, or who you're gonna be able to help further down the line.
Exactly. And it's also really important to like focus on being in community with people who are at least roughly in the same stage of their career as you as well. Because I know a lot of people can feel tempted to be like, oh, well, this writer's like way ahead of me and they've got all these cool projects and I look up to them and they're so great. I'm going to be their friend and I'm going to aggressively try to be their friend. It's like, number one, no one wants to be aggressively chased for friendship by a stranger. Number two, those people all like usually are where they are because they have their own creative community that cared about them before they were cool. So like it makes more sense to just be in it with people honestly and make friendships and help other people if you expect to be helped by others. And if you help each other enough, you'll often find that your careers start to progress at roughly the same rate. It's like, I wonder why.
Right.
It's because you're lifting each other up.
Yeah, that's actually that same advice has been really helpful with this podcast, because I was kind of like in the comics and anime nerd space before launching this podcast. So when I finally launched it, it was like, hey guys, I'm doing this thing. You know me from these things.
Yeah.
If you like those things and you like me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, while everyone, I feel like everyone inherently like deserves the opportunity to like fulfill their dreams and do their projects. No one is entitled to like hype and support or like a boost from like the specific people they pick. Like no one gets to like no one gets to go up to you and be like, I'm a writer and my career matters to me, therefore you owe me. Like that. Right. That's not how that works.
Oh gosh. Definitely not. It's a way to get not in a great position. And then, you know, just like Sailor Moon, at the end of the Toonami episode, she would have the Sailor Moon says phrase. What would your phrase be? So Sailor Joamette says.
Oh wow. Sailor Joamette says that even though times are tough right now and none of us are able to be physically with our friends, or not all of our friends or all of our loved ones, there is something really special happening, because as a species, we are experiencing something simultaneously. something that is making us all think very, very hard about what we used to value, what we used to believe, what we used to think was impossible, what we now think is necessary. And I think that we can turn all of the struggle that we're having right now into something much better than what we had before.
I love that. Yeah, that's so true. There is something very special and unique about everyone on Earth experiencing the same thing. Like, no matter how much money you have, no matter like your race, or like no matter like anything about you, like we all have to like we should be quarantining.
Yeah,
and like, you know, are experiencing this thing together. And yeah, I like that. And yeah, I hope we do come out better than we were before.
We better. I feel like we're screwed if we don't at this point.
Oh gosh. You know, I'm trying to stay optimistic. But yeah.
Yeah. It's not optional at this point.
Right. We'll see. I guess I'll be happy if we make it out of here. We make it out better. I'll be very happy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And what's next for you, and where can people find you?
Wow, what's next for me?
Mm-hmm.
Probably after Mañana anthology funds, I'm going to take a big old break.
Yes.
Probably wait a year before putting out another call for submissions. Focus on my writing, focus on my lettering. Definitely keep your eyes on Dark Horse and Oni Press for some things on the lettering front from me.
Mm-hmm.
And was there a second part to your question?
Where do you want people to find you?
There we go. That's what I thought it was, but I wasn't sure I remembered it correctly.
Yeah, I hear you.
People can find me most easily on Twitter. My handle is @Joamette Gil. That is spelled JoammetteGil. From there, you can find my website. You can find my Power Magic Press Twitter. You can find pretty much everything about me except my social security number. So that is your one-stop shop.
Yeah, it's kind of scary how Twitter is like, you can find every single thing about me. A few personal details, but you'll know all my
more hot takes about
right.
Avatar: The Last Airbender from me on Twitter.
Exactly. Naruto, Sailor Moon, and Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
I am already following you, but I would be following you. I would follow you again if I could from that description.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And once again, I'm Victoria L. Johnson. This is Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. And you can find me at Miss Old School. It's Old School with a K. You can find the podcast at Moonies Club on Twitter and Moonies_Club on Instagram. And thanks for listening, Moonies. And thanks for coming on the show, Joamette.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.